Welcome to Echo Tales, where the past whispers secrets that refuse to stay buried. Tonight, we unearth a truth so sharp, it sliced through a life built on sand. Imagine the tremor when my wife unzipped her designer bag, mere minutes before the most pivotal meeting of her career, and found not the gloss of confidence, but the cold glint of my ring and a decade of lies distilled into 10 chilling words. It wasn't makeup. It wasn't a pen. It wasn't confidence. It was my ring and a note shattering everything. Let's rewind exactly 31 hours. She was dancing in the kitchen. I remember that. She only danced when she was pretending things were fine. I sat at the table, reheating soup I didn't want, listening to her hum some off-brand indie song, watching the straps of her new designer bag glint under the pendant light. That bag, the one she said was just an upgrade, but felt more like a statement. She walked past me, twirled once, and whispered. This meeting could change everything. A whisper of a name, low, as if I were a loose thread, easily clipped. She didn't notice I hadn't responded. She rarely did anymore. While she danced, I stared at the plain silver band on my finger, wondering when it stopped meaning anything to her. Or to me. 12 hours later, she was asleep beside me, clutching a throw pillow instead of my arm, dreaming, perhaps, of someone who wasn't me. I lay there, rehearsing the words that tasted like ash on my tongue, silent pleas I refused to voice. I wouldn't scream, wouldn't plead, wouldn't shatter the fragile peace with my own raw pain. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt every day for the last 7 months. Invisible, unchosen, like a quiet. So, when I woke up before her and saw the VIP pass peeking out of her handbag, I didn't smash anything. I didn't write a letter full of rage. I just removed my ring, wrote a single sentence on hotel stationery, folded it in half, and tucked both items into the interior zip pocket, the one she always saved for her emergency lip gloss and presentation notes. Then I made her coffee. I smiled. I handed her the bag myself. And then I waited. I waited for the message I knew would come once she opened it. But she never messaged me. Instead, someone else did. And what they told me made my blood run cold, the floor beneath me dissolving, because apparently the meeting didn't happen. At least, not the way she planned. And what had happened? Let's just say it started with a scream in a luxury lounge and ended with hotel security escorting someone out in tears. But that was merely the prelude. The true symphony of unraveling had only just begun. What lay hidden in that note, and deeper still, within the heart of her carefully constructed facade. Patience, for the echoes are just beginning to resonate. The first thing I heard the next morning wasn't birds or traffic or her cheerful voice rehearsing lines in the mirror. It was silence. Heavy, weighted silence. The kind that wraps around your chest and warns you something's already gone wrong. You just don't know what yet. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't even pretend. I sat at the kitchen table in my bathrobe, a half-eaten piece of toast beside me, watching the clock tick like it was counting down to an explosion. I stared at my phone. Every buzz made me jump, but her name never showed up. No text, no call, no "what the hell is this?" or "how dare you?" Nothing. Just static. Around 11:47 a.m., I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. No intro, no hello, just 5 stark words. LL, you need to see this. Attached was a blurry photo taken at an angle inside a conference lounge. I recognized Meadow right away, not just because of her outfit, the navy silk blouse and gold earrings I'd helped pick out the night before, but because of her face. That expression, mouth wide open, one hand over her chest, the other holding something small and silver between 2 shaking fingers. My ring. But it wasn't the photo that destroyed me. It was what else was in the frame. An older man, tan, maybe mid-50s, standing behind her with his hand on her shoulder. Not comfortingly, possessively, like he owned the moment, and the way he was smiling. Not shocked, not confused, but amused. That's when I knew this wasn't just about her drifting away. This was betrayal. And it wasn't casual. It was coordinated, practiced, like they'd rehearsed their lives without me already. I don't know why, but I called her just once. Straight to voicemail. I left nothing. Then I got a second message, this time from her assistant, Someone named Heather who I'd only met once at a Christmas party and who spilled an entire glass of Prosecco on her carpet. Hey, the message read, "I'm so sorry. I probably shouldn't say anything, but I thought you deserved to know." She never told him she was married. She called you a roommate. Said you were just someone who couldn't afford to move out. I blinked so hard I thought I might pass out. Roommate. I filed her taxes, built her damn IKEA desk, repainted the bathroom 3 times because pearl white apparently comes in 16 different tones. I wasn't a roommate. I was a placeholder. And still, I hoped she'd text, that she'd explain, that it was a misunderstanding, that she didn't mean it. But nothing came. Instead, someone else knocked on my door. Darla, her sister. She never visited. Not once in the 3 years since we moved into this apartment. And now here she was, standing in my hallway like a grim telegram. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Is she okay?" I asked. Stupid question. She didn't answer right away. She came inside, sat down, looked me in the eyes, and said something that made my skin go cold. She wasn't supposed to be caught. Caught. Not wrong. Not sorry. Just caught. And then she handed me a manila envelope. Inside, printed screenshots, text messages, emails, all between Meadow and someone labeled Mr. Argent. Apparently, their affair had been going on for nearly a year. And it wasn't just emotional. It was financial. She was planning to pitch a side project at this meeting, one she and Mr. Argent developed together, and pretend it was hers alone. The partnership was supposed to be a secret, and so was I, until the ring in the note. Because the note didn't just say good luck. It said, "If you lie well enough, you get to start over, but you don't get to take me with you." She must have opened it right before the pitch. In front of the investors. In front of him. Darla looked at me and said, "You broke her." No, she broke me. But it wasn't over yet. Because Darla also said something else. Something that chilled me to my bones. She's not coming home, but she left something behind. And I swear, what she left behind wasn't something easily discarded. It was a fragment of a future meticulously planned and entirely without me. I stood there, holding the envelope, my fingertips still smudged with ink from the printouts Darla handed me, and I honestly thought that would be the final blow. The kind of thing you see in a sad indie film with a quiet piano soundtrack, where the guy just stares out a window for 20 minutes while it rains. But this wasn't a movie. It wasn't the climax. It was a setup, because what Meadow left behind wasn't guilt, wasn't remorse, wasn't some symbolic item like a necklace or a toy. I didn't even notice it until after Darla left. She gave me that envelope, said, "You deserve to know," and walked out without so much as asking if I was okay. I think even she didn't know the full scope of it. I was still sitting in the living room. The dog hair she always complained about covering the armrest beside me, when I noticed the manila folder wasn't empty. Beneath the emails and texts, there was one thin document with Meadow's initials in the top corner. It was a draft agreement, a legal, fancy logo in the header. I didn't recognize the firm, but I recognized the names, Meadow Delaney and Weston Argent. Proprietary ownership structure proposal. My stomach turned just reading it. It wasn't just an affair. It was a takeover. The document detailed a project, branding strategy, digital marketing design, even merch. All of which I remembered hearing about in vague terms. Late-night brainstorming, mood boards, her laughing to herself at the kitchen table. Except she told me it was for her boss. She said she was consulting on a side campaign. She made it sound like she was helping someone else. Turns out it was hers. The whole thing. Except the agreement listed Weston Argent as the primary financial stakeholder, meaning he got the profit, she got the credit, and I was just the guy making her chamomile tea while she stitched her escape plan behind my back. And then I saw the final clause, the date, the pitch location, and the phrase following, severance of domestic entanglements. Entanglements. That's what I was now. Not a husband, not a partner, just a tangled wire she needed to snip before launching her shiny new chapter. I must have read that sentence 15 times. I don't remember standing up or walking to the bedroom, but I remember opening her dresser. And I remember what wasn't there. No toothbrush, no phone charger, no perfume. She hadn't stormed out. She'd moved out quietly, logically, like someone returning a library book. Except one drawer was still shut. The top drawer. Her do not touch drawer. I opened it. Inside was a velvet box, small, deep red, and sitting right on top of it, a note, folded like mine had been. My chest seized up just seeing it. I unfolded it slowly. It was her handwriting. I meant to leave this in LA with you. But things changed. That's it. That's all it said. I opened the box, and what I saw made me sit down on the edge of the bed like I'd been punched in the gut. It was a ring. Not hers. Not mine. A different one. Diamond, delicate, clean, new. An engagement ring. She wasn't just leaving me. She was preparing to say yes to someone else. Maybe not legally. Maybe not on paper. But in spirit. She was halfway into another life already. With another man. One who I was learning didn't even know I existed until I exposed it all. I sat there for hours, holding that ring in my hand like it was radioactive. I thought about throwing it out the window. I thought about mailing it to Weston's office. But I didn't, because suddenly something clicked. That ring wasn't just a symbol. It was a message, but not to him, to me. She was trying to make me feel replaceable, disposable, like a test run for the real deal. And for the first time in months, maybe years, something inside me cracked, but not in the way you think. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't cry. I started planning. Not revenge. Not something ugly or illegal, but something she didn't expect at all. Because if she wanted to step into her new life, clean and shiny, I was going to make sure her past came with her in a way she'd never be able to erase. And it started with a name. One name buried deep in those emails. Someone neither she nor I thought I'd ever find. But I did, and he was ready to talk. The name was buried in a forwarded email, hidden in the CC field like an afterthought. Devin H., freelance brand designer. I almost missed it, skimming through digital garbage, half hoping for a smoking gun and half dreading one. But there it was, plain as day. No company, no title, just a Gmail address and a trail of quiet mentions. I Googled him. No LinkedIn, no website, just a grainy photo on a community artist blog and a list of minor design credits for half-forgotten startups. Meadow always said she worked with top-tier creatives. But this guy, he looked like he lived on instant noodles and wore graphic tees that said things like Control plus Z my life. Which made me think, why him? So I emailed. Simple, polite, casual enough to slip under the radar. Hi Devin, I'm Lel Delaney. I came across your name in connection with the Loom project. Any chance we could chat briefly? He replied 20 minutes later. I've been expecting this. Just 6 words. And yet they chilled me more than anything Meadow ever said. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe 2 towns over. Neutral ground. I dressed like I was going to an interview, which in a way I was. I brought a notepad, not because I planned to write anything down, but because I needed something to hold on to, something to keep my hand from shaking. Devin arrived 5 minutes early. Slim, wiry, twitchy in a way that made you think he was always 3 steps ahead in a conversation you hadn't even started. He ordered a black coffee and didn't touch it once. Before you say anything, he started, I didn't know she was married. Not at first. And when I found out, he trailed off, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to erase something invisible. She told me you were her ex, he continued. Said you were living together until the lease ended. That you were emotionally clingy and had nowhere else to go. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I felt my stomach twist, but I let him keep going. I didn't believe it. Not completely. So I asked questions, pushed a little. That's when she cut me off from the main project. Said I had compromised the dynamic, which I guess meant I was thinking too much. He reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a flash drive. This is early drafts, brand guides, strategy decks, emails, stuff Weston never saw, stuff she deleted. I kept backups because, well, I'm not stupid, but I also didn't know what to do with it until now. I stared at the drive. It looked small, harmless, but I knew it wasn't. Why give it to me? I asked. Devin looked away. Because I was in love with her, and she ruined me. She used me to build a fantasy. And when I got too real, she erased me like I was a typo. He paused, then leaned in. You're not the only life she's rewritten. That night, I plugged the drive into my laptop with shaking hands. The folder tree unfolded like a confession. Voice notes, branding maps, mood boards annotated with her handwriting. Except she signed them D. Argent. Mi do Delaunay Argent. She was already using his last name. There were mock-ups for a podcast series, book cover designs for a memoir she hadn't written yet called Untethered, and scripts for interviews that framed her as a survivor of a toxic marriage. Me. I was the villain in a story she hadn't even published, but had already prepared to sell. And then I found the video. It was buried in a folder labeled Draft V3 Archive. Delete. I almost missed it, but once I clicked it, I knew she never expected anyone to see it. The footage was grainy. Meadow in a hotel room, sitting at the edge of the bed, wearing the same outfit she'd worn to our anniversary dinner last year, the one she had to cut short because of a client emergency. She looked into the camera and smiled. "This is my goodbye," she said, "to the life I built for someone else, to the version of me that waited tables, supported dreams that weren't mine, and pretended oatmeal was enough. This time, I'm not asking permission. I'm not apologizing. I'm done." The video cut off right as Weston's voice entered the room. "Ready, baby?" I slammed the laptop shut like it might catch fire. She hadn't just erased me. She recorded it, planned it, branded it, built her liberation arc with press-ready sound bites and lighting notes. And I was supposed to just watch. But here's what she didn't expect. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to scream or beg or chase. I was going to let her broadcast her story, and then I was going to show the world what she left out. Because if she wanted a spotlight, she was about to get it. But she wouldn't be alone in it anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I sat in the dark, laptop glowing like an open wound, playing and replaying that video. Watching her face. Not just what she said, but how she said it. Polished, practiced like she wasn't speaking from pain, but from ambition. As if she was pitching her own betrayal to a talent agent. And it hit me. She didn't see this as a fall from grace. She saw it as a launch. By sunrise, I made my decision. I wasn't going to retaliate in the traditional sense. No yelling, no social media exposés, no ugly legal battle. Not yet. She trained herself to expect drama, to spin it. She was ready for chaos. But what she wasn't ready for was a mirror. One she couldn't control. So I started gathering everything. Not just what Devin gave me. I dug deep. Archived voicemails, screenshots of texts, call logs, even our shared photo albums where the timeline didn't quite match our alibis. I created a document. Not for the courts, not for revenge, but for truth. A clean timeline, cross-referenced, time-stamped, verified. I backed it up twice, encrypted it, and titled it, "Version She Won't Edit." Then I reached out to someone she really didn't want to hear from, Mara Bishop. Her name probably doesn't mean anything to you, but to Meadow, she was the one woman in the industry she once publicly vowed never to collaborate or even sip wine with. Meadow had mocked her in interviews, dismissed her branding firm as desperate midlife hustle, and called her book a recycled Pinterest board. I didn't care about any of that. What mattered was that Mara ran a podcast, The Image Trap, focused on deconstructing influencer personas and exposing hidden truths in the marketing world. Think of it as a polite, very legal form of digital demolition. I sent Mara a simple email, one line, "I think you might be interested in the story behind Meadow Delaney Argent and how much of it is borrowed." She responded in 3 hours flat. Subject line, "Tell me everything." I spent the next 2 days giving her a careful, factual breakdown. No insults, no bitterness. Just evidence. Devin's files, the ring, the timeline, her fake rebrand, the roommate lie, the video. Mara didn't reply right away. And when she finally did, it wasn't with a thank you. It was with a Zoom link, a private recording. She said, "I think you'll want to see this before it goes live." I clicked. Meadow was sitting in a soft-lit studio, smiling that smile she reserved for photo ops, nodding along to softball questions. "So, Meadow," the host asked sweetly, "you describe yourself now as self-made, self-rescued. What was the turning point?" She answered with a chuckle. "I guess the moment I realized I didn't have to carry dead weight anymore. That I could step into my own without apologizing for outgrowing someone." Outgrowing someone. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. That was the entire brand. But what she didn't know was that Mara had inserted a new segment after the interview. A special edition piece titled, "The Truth She Left Out." It was dry, clinical, not dramatic. It was methodical, brutal in its precision, and completely damning. Meadow didn't know yet, but she would soon, because the episode was already scheduled to drop that Friday, midnight. But before that, I had one more thing to do. I sent her an email. No subject line, just a file attachment. It was a screenshot of our wedding photo, the one she'd digitally removed from her website months ago, but I'd edited it. Over her bouquet, I placed the engagement ring she left behind. The caption underneath read, "Don't worry, you won't have to carry me anymore. I'm already ahead of you." Then I turned off my phone, and for the first time in weeks, I slept. Not peacefully, not perfectly, but without fear of what I might wake up to. Because I finally realized she wasn't my home. She was my exit. The episode dropped at exactly 12:01 a.m. I know that because I was awake, pacing my living room in the dark, phone in hand, refreshing the podcast feed every 2 minutes. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Maybe a dramatic ripple across the internet, a wave of instant karma that would somehow fix everything. That's not what happened. Not at first. The world didn't explode. The night stayed quiet, but the fuse had been lit. And by the time the sun came up, it was crawling toward the dynamite. At 8:17 a.m., I got the first message. Not from Meadow, from Devin. Holy SH*T. She's going to lose it. That podcast is everywhere. Attached was a screenshot of the trending chart on Spotify. The image trap had cracked the top 10 overnight. The episode title, "The Lie Behind the Lifestyle, a Masterclass in Manufactured Freedom." I sat down, refreshed Twitter. Her name was in the top 30 hashtags. Not because of controversy yet, but the internet doesn't need full names to fill in the blanks. And Meadow had spent too long turning herself into a brand. A brand with footprints, receipts, and cracks. By noon, 3 major marketing blogs had picked it up. By 3 p.m., someone posted a side-by-side clip on TikTok. One from Meadow's TEDx talk 2 months ago, where she claimed she'd built her platform alone, with no safety net, and one from her email chain with Weston, asking him to handle the funding quietly. It went viral, and then I got a call from Darla. Not a text, not a voicemail. A full-on call. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She didn't even say hello. Just, she's threatening to sue everyone. Weston included. She says, "You did this." I stayed quiet. I didn't need to say anything. She already knew. "She's losing it." "Lel," Darla went on. "You know, she never expected this. She built the whole pitch around that freedom from deadweight line. Now she looks like a manipulator who faked her rise." I could hear something in her voice. Not pity, not rage. Something else. Fear. "She's coming back," Darla added. I blinked. "What?" "She's getting on a flight. She wants to handle this in person. Said she's not letting someone else control her narrative." I laughed. It was dry, tired. Too late. That night, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine. Meadow's wine, actually. The bottle she'd hidden at the back of the pantry, labeled for success only. And I watched her Instagram live like a man watching the final act of a play he didn't audition for. She looked radiant as always. Perfect makeup, soft light. But her eyes darted. Her fingers kept twitching at the hem of her sleeve. "I want to address the rumors," she said, smiling like a hostage. "Some people, I won't name them, have been circulating misinformation. Zet elite, that I manipulated people, that I fabricated a past to make myself look better." Pause. Deep breath. I have never lied about being in a difficult situation. Yes, I had a complicated living arrangement. Yes, I was rebuilding myself after emotional hardship, but I did it with honesty, with transparency, with love. The comments section was brutal. "Why no mention of your husband? Funny how your roommate funded your pitch. This ain't TED Talk energy anymore." She tried to keep going, but the smile cracked. She started rambling, tried to pivot to empowerment and rising above bitterness. It didn't land. I turned off the stream, let her burn in her own filters. I didn't feel triumphant, just hollow. The truth is, even after everything, there was a part of me that didn't want to see her unravel. I wanted her to feel consequence, sure. But watching the woman I loved, or thought I loved, self-destruct in real time, it didn't taste like victory. It tasted like ash. And then came the message. Not from Darla. Not from Devin. Not from anyone I recognized. It was a private email. No subject, no greeting, just a single sentence. She left something else behind. Something you missed. Attached, a photo of me and Meadow from 3 years ago. But we weren't alone. And I swear what I saw in that image made my heart stop cold. Because the man in the corner, the one I hadn't noticed back then, was Weston Argent. And he wasn't a stranger. He was someone I'd met before, under a different name, in our home. I stared at the photo for nearly 5 minutes before I let myself blink. My first thought was that it had to be fake, edited, AI-generated, something, because the man in the corner of that image, sipping a drink near our old fireplace, half-turned toward the camera with a smirk I'd seen 100 times. That man wasn't named Weston Argent. He introduced himself to me 3 years small, nothing big, just a dozen people with mismatched wine glasses and too many throw pillows. I remember he brought some fancy bourbon and called me Lolo, like he was trying to be cute. He complimented our kitchen like he was casing the place. He even joked about our photos, pointed to one of our wedding pictures on the fridge, and said, "Damn, you actually look happy here." That's rare these days. I laughed at the time. Now I wanted to throw up. The realization didn't just feel like betrayal. It felt surgical, like someone had cut out a piece of my memory, stitched over it with a lie, and now I was peeling back the thread. I ran to the storage closet, digging through an old cardboard box labeled Party Stuff/Memories. Inside was the guest book we used for that same night. Meadow's idea. Just something cute, she'd said. A novelty item. Most people just doodled hearts or drew stick figures. But I flipped through each page, my fingers shaking, until I found it. There it was. Marcus/1019th/thanks for letting me crash the party. Killer view. His handwriting. Slanted. Pretentious. It wasn't even disguised. He'd been in my home, smiling, drinking my scotch, complimenting my marriage. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like my life had been an Airbnb, and I was just now realizing someone had been living in it without permission. Meadow never once mentioned his real name. Never connected the dots. Because she didn't want me to connect them. Because he wasn't new. He wasn't some spontaneous workplace affair. He'd been there, lurking, grinning from the corner of our lives for years. Every street felt infected now, like everything had been touched by the two of them. And then I made a mistake. I opened my email again. There was another message waiting for Meadow. Subject line, "Let's talk before this goes too far." No body, just an attachment. I didn't want to open it. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. It was a voice recording. She sounded tired. The usual edge in her voice was gone, but not replaced by regret. No, this wasn't an apology. This was strategy. "Lo," she began, her voice carefully modulated. "I know you're hurting. I didn't want to be like this. I hope we could quietly clean, but you made a choice. And now things are messy. You think exposing me makes you powerful, but it just makes you bitter. This brand, this career, I built it. You were part of the story, but not the whole story. You knew that. You felt it. So maybe it's time to stop pretending you were blindsided. You saw the signs. You just didn't want to read them. Pause. A calculated pause. But listen, if you want peace, we can talk. I'll even help you find a new place, somewhere fresh. We can spin this in a way that doesn't make you look like a fool." She ended it with a tone that made my skin crawl. "But don't drag Weston into this. He has people. You don't." My blood ran cold. That wasn't a request. That was a warning. She wasn't scared. She was calculating. She knew I had the truth. But she also believed I didn't know what to do with it. And for a moment, I didn't. I sat on the edge of a park bench, hands frozen around my phone. And I questioned everything again. Not just what she did, but what I missed, what I allowed, what I excused under the banner of she's just stressed, or she's finding herself, or she still kisses me goodnight, right? I thought about deleting everything. The files, the backups, the timeline. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just a bitter ex, spinning a tragedy into relevance. But then I remembered Devin. I remembered Darla. I remember that ring. And I remember the name of the one journalist who'd met me 2 days earlier, saying, "If you ever want the Real story told, I'm listening. No edits." And suddenly, I knew exactly what to do. Not out of spite, but because the truth doesn't vanish just because someone dresses it better. The funny thing about hitting rock bottom is that it doesn't echo. It's quiet, flat. You stand there with everything stripped away, your marriage, your identity, your illusion of stability. And you realize the silence is your new starting point. Not a grave, but a floor. And that's where I stood in that moment. After Meadows' final message, after Weston's face surfaced from the shadows of my past, after every piece of the puzzle clicked into a portrait of calculated betrayal, I stood at the bottom, and I began to rebuild. I didn't answer her message. I didn't take the bait. I didn't engage with her twisted offer to help me find peace, like I was a damaged client instead of the man she promised a life to. Instead, I sent the journalist everything. Full access. Unfiltered emails, documents, photos, and Devin's recording. With a single quote from Meadow, "You were part of the story, but not the whole story." I'll let that be the headline. The article dropped a week later, and it didn't sensationalize anything. It didn't need to. It was just facts, a timeline, and quiet truths stitched together like a quiet eulogy for a relationship that never had a chance. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I was never what she wanted. And for the first time, that didn't feel like failure. It felt like freedom. The response was overwhelming. Not for me, but for her. Brand sponsors paused collaborations. Her TEDx video was quietly removed. Her social media, once a parade of pastel quotes and power, I mailed back her engagement ring with no note. I put my wedding band on a shelf I no longer dust. And I moved, not out of shame, out of choice. I left the apartment, took only what was mine, and signed a lease in a small town 3 hours away. I started teaching again, creative writing at a community center. I tell stories now, but not ones that hide pain behind metaphors. I tell real stories, because people deserve to know how healing actually looks. Devin started freelancing under his own name again. Darla sent me a thank you message for getting it all out there. Weston? He's silent, probably hiding behind PR now, or maybe planning a rebrand of his own. Doesn't matter. And Meadow? I don't know where she is. I don't need to, because I'm not her roommate anymore. I'm not a ghost in her biography. I'm the man who left when he realized staying meant becoming invisible. If you're still with me, thank you. This tale, like all echoes, lingers long after the sound fades. It reminds us that some betrayals are not born of sudden impulse, but of meticulous design, leaving indelible marks on the tapestry of our lives. We invite you to reflect on your own echoes. Have you ever been erased from your own story? Or seen the hidden patterns in a truth presented as spontaneous? Share your thoughts below. Let the echoes connect us. This has been Echo Tales. Until next time, listen closely to what the silence holds.